Hi, and welcome to Chain Reactions, a weekly live stream from Myosin.xyz, the leading global marketing network, and hosted by yours truly, Blake, and my co-host, Polina. Tune in each week as we jam on the latest happenings in the wild and wonderful world of Web3. We're live on Unlonely.app every Wednesday, 12 p.m. Eastern, and release the pod every following week on Tuesdays. Now, let's talk Chain Reactions. Start in a second here. Bear with us. All right. I'm feeling good. You guys ready?
Ready.
All right. Let's get into it. So let's kick it off. So number one, thank you, Fran, for joining us, and welcome to Chain Reactions. This is our weekly live stream and podcast where we talk with leaders in Web3, so founders, marketers, and everyone awesome, and to talk about their projects, marketing tactics, and what they've been up to. I'm Blake, and this is Polina, and
Hi.
Yeah. There we go. And this is Fran. So Fran, I don't know if you want to kick things off, introduce yourself, talk a bit about Superfluid, and we can dive straight into things.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Fran. I'm one of the founders of Superfluid. Personally, I've been in crypto since 2017. So I joined towards the end of I guess it's 2 cycles ago or 3 cycles ago. Lost some money because I joined at the top, but then I didn't leave when it went back down. And I was lucky enough to basically learn the ropes during the bear market. And then I was there when the DeFi summer happened. With my co-founder, we actually built one of the first DeFi derivatives in 2019. So that was, ages ago at this point. It was one of the first derivative tokens. So, stablecoin derivatives. Seems like forever ago now, but I've been around for a while, always very close to DeFi, more recently also looking at SocialFi and other stuff, but mostly in DeFi. And we started Superfluid. Well, I guess as an idea, it was born in 2019, started the company in 2020, and we've been working on it since then. It's been a very, very long journey. Superfluid is, in my opinion, it's very interesting. It's a really cool primitive. Obviously, wouldn't be working on it otherwise. But it's also a hard sell. It's not a yield protocol. It's not a stable coin. It's not one of those kind of categories that everybody's heard of, right? And that's made the journey a bit longer than for other people. It's been a lot harder for us, I would say, than for other people. I think what we're doing is very important, very interesting, and I'd love for more people to know about it as well and use it. So what is Superfluid? So Superfluid is a decentralized protocol. It's live on, I think, about 12 EVM networks. We're focused only on EVM. Don't touch the other stuff. And what Superfluid allows is for the creation of streamable tokens. Streamable tokens means tokens that can be streamed, and money that can be streamed is obviously a bit of a weird concept. So to kind of give an analogy, streaming video, right? So like YouTube, for example, what it allows us to do is to see a video before downloading it, right? So you go to YouTube and you see the video while you're downloading it rather than before it finishes downloading, right? For people kind of old enough to remember it, before you actually had to download stuff and then you could watch it, right? Now you just open it and it works, right? So, funnily enough, for a video platform to work like that would be completely unimaginable, right? Imagine a YouTube where you go and you have to download the video before you watch it, right?
I'm just thinking about LimeWire right now. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Remember back in the day? But for, I'd say probably about 99% of the population, that's exactly how their salary works. So they work, and they have to wait for the end of the 2 weeks or 1 month, depending on the country, to actually get paid, right? So for some reason, we managed to kind of skip forward in the video and in the audio technologies with streaming. But in money, it's still a very novel concept, right? But that's kind of what Superfluid does. Obviously, there's a lot of applications. Streaming salaries it's one that's very close to us. We think it's very appealing for people to get paid every second. But there's a lot of other things that you can do with it. For example, subscriptions. Superfluid is the best way to do subscriptions in Web3. There's not really any other ways to do it very well. It's a great way to distribute rewards, right? So token vesting, reward vesting, airdrop vesting, right? And it's also got a bunch of applications in games. So in GameFi, there's a bunch of projects that use us. So yeah, Superfluid basically is a primitive that it allows tokens to upgrade to a version where they can be streamed alongside being transferred, right? So normal tokens, all you can do with them is transfer them. Superfluid tokens, you can transfer them, but you can also stream them. And this kind of brings them to, let's say, the next generation of what tokens in Web3 could do. Does that make sense?
You mentioned, yeah, no, it makes total sense. But you mentioned before, and it kind of stuck in my brain, that you said it's hard to sell because it's not like something typical that comes to crypto, like to Web3. But
it's a complete mind shift.
Yeah, it is something new and novel, but we're used to new things in crypto. But the hard sell part it sounds weird to me because I know that your guys' ecosystem is quite big and you have pretty big brands in it as well, like Optimism, Safe, across different segments. So when you mentioned hard sell, and when you came up with the idea for Superfluid and you built it, what was the first integration? Like, what was the first partner that the first case study that you had where it became clear that there is something there that we should build on?
So yeah, the reason I say it's a hard sell is actually very connected to what you just said, right? So the first kind of let's say inkling of like product market fit that we found. So one of our first users was actually MakerDAO. So again, we've been in crypto for forever, right? So we're close to all the very early OG teams. And MakerDAO was one of the first teams to adopt Superfluid to pay salaries for their teams, right? And at that point, we started looking at salaries as a very important use case for us. However, if you look at salaries in crypto, it's a tiny market. Like if you look at let's say, what's a crypto brand that has the biggest user base, right? Probably Binance. If you look at DEX, sorry, not DEX, but like on-chain stuff, I would say probably Uniswap, possibly something like Galaxy, right? So the use cases in Web3 that have a massive amount of user bases are basically trading and airdrops, pretty much. But if you look at the number of people who actually get paid in crypto, it's really small, right? So it's not a hard sell in the sense that people don't want to receive their salary every second. It's a hard sell because not many people have the luxury of getting paid in crypto in the first place, right? So it's a very small market compared to the mass market of basically losing money on chain, which is very popular, a very popular hobby.
No, that makes sense. So you looked at the market and you're like, okay, one of the biggest markets and the biggest problems right now is airdrops. Everyone is talking about it. There is something going on there, and it's like this new way to reward the community, but something is wrong. So what is in it that you saw a problem in that you're trying to resolve with Superfluid?
I mean, again, I remember the first airdrop, right? So Uniswap got to the office. We were just starting with Superfluid. I think we hadn't come out publicly yet. So, very, very early days for us. And everyone in our office was super excited, right? Everybody had used Uniswap at least once with at least one account. So everybody got the airdrop. Everybody was super excited about it, right? And I think when Uniswap did it, it worked. It worked really well, right? At that point, Uniswap just projected themselves, 100 years in the future compared to everybody else. And it was great. The problem is since then, it's been 3-4 years. And at this point, the airdrop meta is just, it's exhausted, right? Like it's at the point where most of the speculation on tokens is happening before the token is released, rather than afterwards, right? People are basically farming, projects pre-release instead of using them after the token is released. And what the airdrops have become is basically an expectation by the users rather than a retroactive reward, right? And at the same time, because of this, basically airdrops become a selling point for sellers, right? So if you are farming a project for a year and then they give you airdrop, you're going to think everybody is going to sell, which means the logical thing for you to do is to sell the moment you get it, right? And that's proven, right? Because it's a prophecy that proves itself, because every single NFT, every single airdrop chart goes down, right? So it's just at this point, almost like the law of airdrops is that you should sell it immediately and then buy back a month later, right? So even if you're bullish, you should still sell. And that's just a clear indication of failure, right?
Tell that to my Pengu bags right now.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God. Yeah. So Pengu is a great example, right? So are you American, Blake?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna say something that's gonna make you very pissed off. So you got Pengu.
Let's go.
You got Pengu in December, which means it's the last tax year.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So I hope you sold it, because if you didn't sell it and you sell it now, you're losing money on that airdrop. Yeah. Which is, it's horrible. I mean, because it's gone down 60%, right? Which means any taxes that you owed on that airdrop, which is income, I mean, let's not make it a tax conversation, but it's kind of stupid, right? It hasn't been a month and it's already down. And I just think it's, at this point, it doesn't really help anyone. I mean, obviously, it gives you that kind of flash of adrenaline when you get some free money, but that's all it is. It's just free money. And, your incentive is to sell it and move on to the next one. So it doesn't.
It's weird also, right? Because Project Penguins have been around for so long, and they're like this blue chip, they're building, like everyone is bullish on Lupa, yet people still are like selling. Yep. And there's been so much hype that it's just like, it's an impossible wave to stop, and it doesn't reflect the value of the project or their credibility or anything. It's not.
It's so PvP, and if I can be honest, right? And I hope no other fellow penguins actually hear this, because I don't want to get destroyed here. But yes, I unfortunately did recently have to sell my pengu, because after the whole Trump Melania thing. But here's the thing: when I think about my own market psychology, like, I knew rationally from a tax perspective I should claim it later. But I claimed it immediately because I was like, listen, like, it may go down. Yeah. It did go down, but I was like, Project Penguins, they are a great project. I'm a holder. I believe in them. Maybe I sold, and then immediately, as one does, exactly what Fran just described. The only reason I bought back in, and maybe I shouldn't have in hindsight, was because the expectation of the next airdrop, because obviously Abstract was coming. And I was like, well, I need to hold Pengu to get the roll so I can get the Abstract thing to boost my Pengu, whatever. And then Abstract mainnet just dropped 2 days ago, and I was like, and then I saw what it was, and God bless them. Maybe we should be streaming on there. Who knows? But all this stuff that's happened recently, I was like, you know what? I think I just got to call my losses and move on, or claim my whatever I can and then move on. So kind of validating very much, I think, what Fran's saying. It's the airdrop meta needs to change. It needs to evolve. So I'm quite excited to kind of hear how you're thinking about it, and how we can change that and make that better. Because I think Superfluid's doing some interesting things there, right? So how are you thinking about that? Yeah.
I mean, the way we think about it is that ultimately tokens are incentives, right? And airdrops are not incentives, right? Airdrops are more like rewards, right? So it's like a reward for past activity. But that's it, right? It's for past activity, right? And that's kind of exhausts itself when you distribute it. The way we think about how this should work is more of as an ongoing product. So the same way, I would say some of the most successful tokens, in my view, in the DeFi space, distribute their tokens, right? So if you think of something like Airdrop, right? Airdrop is distributing tokens continuously, right? And it works very well. You don't get tokens once because you LP'd in 2018. You get tokens every week because you LP'd that week, right? And I think that's exactly how it should work, right? Now, it works that model works very well for Airdrop because their mechanism is extremely simple. It's all numbers. It's all on chain. There's no kind of squishy off chain bits, which makes it very easy to kind of build into contracts and execute. And that's how a lot of DeFi projects do it. But for kind of the newer stuff, nowadays there's like a million different apps that do a lot of different things. And I think a lot of metrics are not necessarily on-chain data, right? Like you want to reward community participation. You want to reward people differently. You want to, do marketing campaigns, all of these different things. And that's why everybody gravitated towards points, right? Like the reason points are cool, and we see now projects who even have even have a token already live, they're still doing points, right? And the reason they're doing points is not because points are better, it's because points are more flexible, right? You can have your marketing team distributing points using no-code tools, right? You can have, you can do an NFT drop that gives people points. Like you can do all sorts of things very easily. While, tokens are more they're a bit harder to distribute, right? They're a bit more static.
And especially if they're liquid and they're money, right? It's like, how do you quantify? How do you validate? We're doing the same thing for our own community. As a DAO and as a, decentralized organization, we want to be giving more of our own native token away. But for exactly the reason you're saying, it's like, well, let's do points. And at the end of every month, we can start to retroactively say, you earn these points and that will equate to the token that we would like to give. So it very much makes sense. Yeah.
Which is also better, because if you give people tokens immediately, like if every time you do X, you get Y tokens, then you're just going to sell the tokens, and then you're
constant sell pressure. Yeah,
exactly. It's just like giving, it's almost like, when you, at that point, people just think of it as a discount, right? Like, it's like when you're buying a flight and they say, we're going to give you 100 miles, but then you go and sell the miles immediately, right? You shouldn't be able to sell the miles immediately, because otherwise it doesn't do its job, right? And it's because its job is to incentivize you to keep coming back and to use the product again, right? So you kind of have to think about it a bit in a Web2 way of like, what did we used to do that worked very well in Web2, right? And that is,
which, by the way, it makes so much sense. Why do we have to throw the old playbook out? It works for a reason. Points is giant in the Web2 world. Yeah,
exactly. We just need to make it a bit better, right? So what we're doing with streaming programmatic rewards, which is a new mechanism and system that we're building, is basically trying to join the two things, right? So it's actually organized as a points program built on top of Stack, or actually as a it could be a collection of programs, different points programs. So Stack, for those who don't know it, is basically a no-code points system. It allows you to do all sorts of things without needing to code. So in our team, a lot of different people have tried it. We've got people who cannot code at all who are using it to, help us build this points program. And we are uniting that with Superfluid to basically give you streaming rewards based on your points. And we think that what that does is it kind of gives you all the advantages of points being off chain and very kind of configurable, dynamic, and, very flexible to do all sorts of things, right? Like, for example, we've got a proof of concept where we can literally give people points by giving a thumbs up on Discord, right? That immediately gives them points, and that will translate into a bigger stream, right? And that's all automated in our system, right? So this kind of unites the two things, because one of the things that I saw people do with points and I thought was really, really fucked up, sorry for the word, I don't know if kids are watching this, is basically people would accumulate a bunch of points. They have no idea what they convert to, right? And then basically they find out it converts to like 1% of supply, right? Or they find out that a week before launch, the team issues a bunch more points and dilutes everybody before. And, people who are hustling for points for like months get basically diluted the last minute by another points issuance, right? And this happens because the token distribution and the points distribution are completely separate. So you can basically get screwed at any point by uniting them, right? So as you get points, it determines how big the stream is. You're getting the rewards in real time, which means there's no risk that you will get screwed later, right? So I think that's a kind of a cool mechanism. And then you can kind of model this as you go, right? That's, again, the flexibility of points programs. It's not built into smart contracts. So, you can have your marketing team work on this. You can have community governance, come up with new programs, change the configuration of the points program, right? And it's all configured as an ongoing program. So it's completely dynamic and can adapt also to what works and what doesn't work, which again is another weakness of airdrops, right? So, all these teams are doing airdrops. They're preparing for months. They've got these massive lists of users. They're trying to figure out who's going to dump, who's going to hold. And they have no idea what happens until, one day they just throw it out there and then it's gone, right? So you can't really adapt. You can't really learn. You can't, change things. But with points programs, you can do all of that. And with streaming programmatic rewards, it's the same, right? So if you see that you have a points program that's rewarding people on Discord for community participation, you can easily see what those users are doing with the tokens after they get them. And if you see that they're all dumping immediately, the next cycle, you just change the program and stop rewarding them, right? Which is something that you can't do with an airdrop because you only get one shot at getting it right, right? So, it's more adaptive, it's more flexible, and ultimately it's also not screwing the recipients, right? Because I think that's important too. Like points programs went a bit too far, in my opinion. But I think, it's kind of the middle ground. I'm very excited to get this out there soon enough and see how it goes.
Well, and this is so exciting, right? Because I think it's, I feel like over the course of this conversation, we've kind of mapped out the history, because you were literally there, the history of airdrops and how that's evolved to the points meta. And it feels like what you're talking about is really changing that narrative and being able to, as you said, combine the best of both worlds, because they both have their role to play, but how are you doing it? And I'm really excited. And actually, can you just tell me, because low key, just for selfish purposes, I personally, because I've been keeping up to date with what you guys are doing. I am very interested in figuring out how to leverage this. But I was actually, while you were explaining all this, going on the website, trying to find how I can actually participate. Is it fully live yet that anyone can just go and start setting that up? Or where are we in that cycle, I guess?
Like, wants to be early.
Yeah, I want to be early because I like it. It makes sense. Yeah.
So we're rolling out the first campaign very soon. I think it's now getting, I think probably in next month, let's say. The first campaign will be out, but we're also working with a few different teams to roll out different campaigns with different new token launches. So, if anybody wants to get in touch, I'm pretty easy to contact, and we can see if it's the right fit. I think it's not necessarily the best fit for everyone. I think sometimes fully on-chain program like Aerodrome is great, right? But for things that are more off-chain, or for things that have, let's say, more breadth of touch points with their user base, I think this is a really interesting mechanism. And you can also run it alongside a traditional airdrop if you really want to do that,
Yeah, so that's next month. We're talking, it's like February 2025 for anyone will be listening to the podcast. You might see the new meta start from airdrops to streaming programmatic rewards. But I'm curious, like from a perspective of the marketing team, and you mentioned that it's a no-code platform. So just trying to imagine if, like for myself, this is basically like the questing tools that we're familiar with, only with a built-in mechanism to distribute the rewards in real time, and both off-chain and on-chain transactions being in there. What is the breadth of tooling that you have? Like what are the levels of the gamification can I implement?
So we're collaborating with Stack on this, right? And Stack has a bunch of different integrations with NFTs, do analytics, all sorts of different things. You can also basically just build your own tracking, right? So it's very, very flexible. Obviously if you use the no code, that it's always going to be more limited than if you do code, right? But even if you do code, it's super, super easy. So fun fact that as a weekend project last weekend, I built a small tool that we'll be using at Denver to give everybody who we meet points, right? And I'm not even a builder, so it was mostly built by AI. But I'm just going to be able to send people points on Telegram, and the points will translate to a bigger stream in the streaming programmatic rewards, right? So super easy to build. Yeah.
So Denver is coming up, okay? And you're planning something for it to support the launch of streaming programmatic rewards. So for everyone who's listening out there, and you will be able to find Fran by the green hat and probably the Superfluid merch. So what is it gonna look like? The person would need to find the Superfluid team member, and how do they? What is it, like a follow-up or?
No, you just give them your ENS, and then they send you an NFT, and the NFT triggers everything else, basically. So there's the members of the
Fran, I'm
Superfluid
gonna follow up with you when I'm in Denver.
I was like, this is your early alpha. Way to get early, Blake.
Exactly. And if you meet multiple people from our team, you can then get you unlock another NFT. So but again, it's just a simple game, but I like how easy it was to build that into the whole distribution mechanic, right? It's really easy to set up. Again, 90% of the code was written by Claude. So, very, very easy for kind of amateur developers like me to build. And it's basically going to influence the distribution of tokens, right? In a big way in this campaign that we're launching. And I think one of the interesting things is also that, now we're seeing more and more agents, right? And I wouldn't be surprised if more teams start looking at using agents to distribute their rewards, right? So you can imagine in the future campaigns that are, potentially built using streaming programmatic rewards, but partially managed by on-chain agents, right? Because all of that will be possible using the platform that we're building.
How do you imagine that? Just to put an example on it, so it's easier to envision.
So actually, we built a prototype of this that actually paid people in our Discord for sending funny jokes. So if you made a joke about Superfluid, it would basically send you participation in an ongoing stream. So I think basically if you sent jokes earlier, you would get a slightly bigger reward than if you sent them later. But it turned our Discord on. People just started playing with it. A bunch of people joined the Discord just to kind of interact with that AI. And, that was just a really, really dumb game. But I think in the future, we can see a lot more things that are more valuable. You can have people, tweeting about your project and then submitting those tweets for evaluation by a marketing manager AI that will say, oh, this is a really good tweet. Here are your points. And then that converts directly to a bigger reward, right? So again, I think we're going to see more of this stuff just because it's so easy to build these days. And we all know that ultimately the thing that's most useful in marketing is distribution, right? Is getting to as many people as possible. And if you're able to mobilize a huge amount of people because you can scale that distribution, both, you can scale the distribution on chain and you can also scale the evaluation of those people's contribution to your marketing campaign because you're using AI to evaluate their contribution, then, the whole thing can scale a lot bigger, right? So yeah, I do think Twitter is going to become hell, right? It's just going to, it's going to get worse and worse. I think Yaps has already kind of destroyed the Twitter experience, but it's just going to get worse from here.
But honestly, it's not just Twitter. Like, I'm also an active user of Instagram, and the ads that I'm seeing lately are all AI. These are all like Hey Gen plus Runway plus, and people believe these are real people. I'm like, it barely opens its mouth. Like, how? They just don't see it yet. I think we're so like in Web3 and generally like people who are more into tech and are on Twitter more, they're way easy, like they identify the difference way easier, but most people don't see the difference. And it's crazy to me that these ads are performing so well that it makes me sad, honestly.
Yeah, it makes you wonder.
Unfortunately, all this AI stuff.
Yeah,
but also
things.
for the Discord, I think it's like a product on its own, because it's such a blessing for a community manager to have a helper by his side who is able to evaluate and do all these like tasks nonstop pretty much, and engage with people and make it entertaining to be part of Discord. And then you can customize it however you want it, right? Once as you mentioned, it's tell me a funny joke. Another time it can be send me a funny meme, or like you said, a tweet. I love it.
So all this talk about AI and bots kind of reminds me of something, which was DevConnect or DevCon when we were in Bangkok in the fall. And I was fortunate enough to attend the Superfluid house, and Fran actually moderated a panel I was on called, what was it? Are airdrops dead and did bots kill them? Or something along the lines. And it was myself and Brian Flynn from formerly Rabbit Hole, now Boost. And I think we kind of took opposite sides, in this fun debate over did they kill them or not. And I think we got to talk and give our points of view. I think basically, if I remember correctly, I think Brian was taking the point of, yes, bots are killing them, and I was trying to take the other side. But now I want to flip the script on you, Fran, and say, what do you think about that personally? Where do you think, what is the role that bots have to play in all this? Does it help? Does it not help? Does it, as long as they just do the action that we're looking for, does it not matter? Yeah.
I would say it doesn't matter, and we just have to get better at defining the goals. What is the goal? What is your goal, right? I mean, do you care if your ultimate consumer and user is a bot, right? Does it matter? Well, depends what the goal is, right? If your goal is to, reach humans, then you're failing. If your goal is to reach more people who will respond, then maybe you're not, because bots will respond as well. So yeah, I think it's inevitable that that's going to be the case. Sometimes you'll find threads on Twitter where the OP is a bot and the people in the replies are not people, right? And that's just kind of where we're going, probably. It's inevitable, but
but the bots will be streaming their tokens using Superfluid. Let's be clear, right?
That's what I was thinking.
They just have to figure out that they're gonna get paid by doing the things, and then they'll receive a stream, and it's good.
You've said before that teams need a way to distinguish between long-term holders and short-term holders. So how would streaming programmatic rewards enable that and ultimately prevent AI agents being the only long-term holders to kind of optimize, the acquisition of users?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's actually one of the things that we discussed in Bangkok, right? So the idea is what we were saying before. If your reward for an action is instant, then as a bot, my incentive is to immediately sell, because as a bot, I can't necessarily evaluate if I should sell now or sell later, right? It's a very human decision if you want to hold the token or sell it. So the rational thing to do is probably just sell it immediately and reduce your costs or make a profit immediately. Streams kind of make it much harder to evaluate economically whether the action will be profitable or not, because the reward is not instant, right? So again, the idea is, imagine you have to mint an NFT for $100 and you get back 100 tokens, right? As a bot, you can easily check, are 100 tokens worth more than $100? if they are, then I'll buy the NFT, get the tokens, sell them, make a profit. And that's an instant transaction, right? Any bot can easily do that. Now, if you buy with $100 and then you get 100 tokens over a month, then you have no guarantee that the price will remain, right? It's no longer such an obvious choice. You actually have to make a value-based judgment of whether you want to hold, you basically want to take the risk of those tokens being coming in over a month, right? You have to kind of think, is it going to still be worth $100? Do I really want to do this, right? Which necessarily introduces a human element and necessarily forces you as the person taking on that incentive to evaluate the reward in a more investment, with a more of an investment mentality and less of a trader mentality, right? So it forces you to think long term. If you're short term, you should go for the things that are going to give you instant gratification, because otherwise it's impossible to calculate your P&L at the end of the day. While if you're long term and you're trying to accumulate a position, then streaming rewards are probably going to end up being higher and going to end up, being a better investment. So that's kind of how it stratifies, right? Because it delays gratification.
No, that makes a lot of sense, and it sounds like a no-brainer. I mean, just generally retention rate for projects because of the whole drama with airdrops lately. But at the same time, it makes me think that, most projects use airdrops as this attraction mechanism to bring as much interest as possible, bots or no bots, it doesn't matter. It's sort of cast a wider net and you will find, a subset of users that might be your long-term holders down the line. But with streaming programmatic rewards, it sounds like it's more rational decision. It's not like aping to something and like farm it, but more, okay, I want to commit to it, I want to be a user, I want to do this now more. So it's less hype, so I can't imagine that the level of attention that you can bring with an airdrop versus streaming programmatic rewards is different, right? So when you, let's say, looking at, projects who would adopt this more, we're looking at more established projects in the space, I imagine, and not so much the new ones who just want to make a name for themselves.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a good point, right? But I think that is just a sign of a maturing industry, right? I don't think many people use British Airways because of their miles program, right? Because the whole point is that the miles program is not meant to be the reason you use British Airways the first time. It's the reason you use it the second and the third time, right? So it's, again, and incentives, tokens are, they are a crypto native mechanism and they have a lot of nice properties, but ultimately it's supposed to be a retention mechanism. It's not supposed to be a way to, give people money, right? That was never the point, right? And for a lot of projects, it actually doesn't help. Like if you have a token that at launch performs great, a lot of people manage to cash out, that does not help your project grow in the future. It has nothing to do with your project growing in the future, because all it did was help the first people to sell, make a lot of money. It did not help the project itself, right? And from there, you actually have an uphill battle, because your price is never going to be as high as when you launched, right? Your chart is always going to look bad. And obviously this is not true for everyone. And, everybody has a survivor bias. So we tend to think of the projects that made it, but the projects that made it are very few compared to the projects that didn't. And that's because generally speaking, airdrops don't work, right? I think a much better mechanism, which, as you said, is not going to generate the same amount of hype at launch, but is going to generate a much better distribution and is going to create much more incentivized long-term users, is one that is basically built for retention and growth, rather than one that is built for kind of, hype and then nothing, right?
So Fran, I want to build on this because I think really good points here, right? And I think I want to kind of make this more concrete because we talk to early stage projects all the time. We have people that come to us all the time in Myosin and they're like, we're gonna TG, like, can we do KOLs? And I have to be the one to like walk them back a little bit. Be like, yeah, okay, we do KOLs. We got to think about content. You got to think about, do you have a community? Like, how are you gonna do? Like, there's all these other factors that like KOL is one factor in this giant, web of marketing. But I guess then the question becomes, if you are an early stage project, right, and you have TG in like 3 months, right, how does one really think about it? Should they be building a points program and then they start to integrate Superfluid? So then after TGE, then they can start to programmatically stream out based on the first 6 months and then moving forward. Is that the right, like, how do you think about that? Yeah.
I think that is a great way to do it. That is a great way to do it for sure. I think it's much easier to start with a points program early on and start learning what's right for your product, what's right for your community, right? Start incentivizing people that way, because launching a token is not something you want to do in a rush, right? So I would definitely recommend to everybody to start with a points program, and you'll quickly see, how people respond to different programs, and you'll learn, right, what's right. But then I think as soon as it makes sense, launching a token is great, right? So launch a token and then start using streaming so that you're distributing the tokens on an ongoing basis. And by doing that, you're basically just gonna retain the good users. This is very unlikely to attract airdrop farmers unless they are not really airdrop farmers, right? Because that's the other thing is the industry has converted users. Okay, let me go a bit meta. People think of airdrop farmers as bots. Like, I remember there was a period where we just talked about them as bots. We never even entertained the fact that these are humans doing exactly what they're incentivized to be doing. But actually, most airdrop farmers are simply people who don't have as much time, or not terminally online. People for whom, earning $1,000 is great, is amazing, right? And who are probably from, the south of the world, right? But they are human. They're people, right? Now, why are they acting like bots? Why are they being extremely mercenary, doing everything that we put in line to get the rewards and then disappear? Because that's the incentive. Right? The incentive is literally farm us and then disappear, right? So then these people farm us and then disappear, and we call them bots, and we try and punish them for doing what was the incentive, right? So I think if the incentive were to stick around and keep growing your part of the pie, which is what you can achieve with streaming programmatic rewards, then maybe those users won't look like bots anymore, and they'll start actually participating in what you're doing, because they're still getting money. They're just getting it slower, right? But guess what? That's exactly how they get their salary, right? Like, people are used to earning money over time. It's just that, in crypto, it's all a bit more like a lottery, right? You do all these things and then maybe you get $1,000, right? But if you do all these things, you're going to get $1,000 a month. That actually sounds much better, right? And I think it will bring out much better results for people who use it.
And I just want to drop, as I'm hearing all this just reminded me of that quote, which is, show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome, which I feel like just so perfectly encapsulates what Fran is talking about here. So I just want to, I don't know, it just felt so fitting. Yeah.
I think it also encourages people, like builders, to be long-term in the space and actually build cool stuff, and not just, launch something for the airdrop, let the token moon and then disappear. So it's from both ways, like a retention mechanism. But you mentioned in the beginning that, salaries is a very small pool, but also you're only focusing on EVM, you said. Why not? The future is multi-chain, Fran. What is why are you alienating other chains and other farmers and other chains?
Shots fired.
Shots fired. Yeah. For us, it's a matter of resources. We just can't afford to maintain multiple implementations. But to be honest, as much as other chains have grown a lot, I still think that there's nothing interesting outside of Ethereum at the moment for us. Like, there just isn't. We're not building for gamblers, right? If we were building for gamblers, we should probably build for, but we don't. So it's just not interesting.
Shots fired.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's true. Look, they've done a great job at attracting gamblers. It's the biggest casino Web3, much bigger than Ethereum. Good for them. But it's not our, it's just not our target audience. Because at the moment there's no
You don't
super.
have to be. No.
I hope not. Yeah, I hope that it's not the only way to build a business, right? If the only way to build a business is to cater to gamblers, I think we're restricting the breadth of Web3, right? Because not everybody's a gambler. I'm not a gambler, right? So I don't think that we want to make that the only thing that works. And, even if it's the slower road, we, chose not to do that at the moment.
It's about growing the pie. Yeah.
I think that's fair. Yeah. It makes sense to focus on something and do it really well, and then only maybe when it makes sense.
Paulina, I am conscious of time. Should we hop into rapid fire questions?
Yes, let's go. You wanna walk us through this?
Yeah, so pretty straightforward. We just have a bunch of questions. Don't overthink it. We'll just go boom, 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 boom. There's some fun ones in there. I may have one that I don't think we have listed, so that'll be fun. But let's just get into it. So, most underrated marketing tactic in Web3 right now.
Most underrated marketing tactic. I guess rewarding UGC. It's not underrated. No, that's basically what Kaita does. I mean, that's literally Kaita.
But it's hard to do.
It's still really hard to do. Yeah, it's still hard to do. Yeah.
It's not as easy as just make art. And it's who's making the art? This art sucks.
Exactly. I actually think AI is going to make that easier.
It's going to change things, but yeah. Most overrated one.
KOLs.
Yeah, I would agree with you there.
Everyone says that.
Yeah, I think we're all tired of it. But it's ironic. They all come to us and say that's what they want. So I'm like, it's so frustrating.
Exactly.
It's challenging.
Well, it's because it looks like UGC. They want UGC, but you can't pay for that. So they pay for KOLs.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's very on the nose. Worst airdrop design you've seen. That's a good one. Nice one, Pauline.
Worst airdrop design.
Feel free to get spicy. Or just worst airdrop.
Worst airdrop. I mean, so many of them are worst. Yeah, I just don't
mind. Don't overthink it. I know you got one in your head.
Pangu. It's on the wrong chain. How can you get the chain wrong? It was so easy.
Yeah. Well, as you said, they wanted to be where the gamblers are, So, but yeah, that was an interesting one. Which crypto brands are actually crushing it on social?
I think Optimism does a decent job, but also it's not really a brand, I guess, but Etherealize, the new, I don't know if you're following it. They're doing a really good job. I mean, they do call themselves the kind of marketing brand for Ethereum, but yeah, I think they're doing a really good job.
It's exciting. Although being a bit of a nitpicker and a slightly design-oriented person, I do have to say, did you see the thing where the diamond is not quite aligned? It's guys, you can just change that.
Yeah,
it's just a small detail, but it was just kind of random. But yes, very excited for those guys, and I think Ethereum needs it. So we'll see. One piece of advice for protocols planning their token distribution:
do points first, and try and segment your users and reward the right segments based on retention. Right, so basically by doing points, you can figure out who you should be giving more to and who you should be giving less to, and then double down on that based on the data that you get.
That's great. And I feel like customer segmentation it feels so obvious to a marketer, but it's actually pretty underrated, I think, for a lot of people.
And you can't do it. You can't do it if you're doing an airdrop. You can't segment because you don't have previous data. You just have
understanding your users. So important. Worst marketing advice you see being pushed in crypto. Well, I feel like that kind of ties with underrated, but yeah, let's go into it. Yeah.
Worst marketing advice. I mean, I guess KOLs again. Can I say KOLs twice?
Just only KOLs. Yeah. No, it's fine. And I think the last one here is one of my favorites, which is if you look back, I guess it's January, so it could be this year, but really more like 2024. What are your biggest learnings? Professional learnings as a Web3 founder, someone building in this space. This is a fun one. We like to ask everyone this.
So you mean in the last year?
No, just over the past 12, 13 months. Yeah. or even your whole life, I guess. But as someone who's been building the space for quite a long time, what do you feel like is your biggest professional learning?
Basically, to never underestimate how much a few committed individuals can achieve, and basically betting on the good people around you, I think is very valuable. A lot of people tend to basically hunt for unicorns, right? So think that they'll find something next month. We'll find this thing that is going to do it for us. But actually investing in the things that you already have is usually a better strategy. We've done that in our ecosystem, and there's some people that have stuck around for a really long time and are doing really good things. And for a long time we were chasing unicorns, and you don't actually find the unicorns, but the people around you who stick around end up doing great things. So you should invest more in them.
I love that. As someone who helps run a community of marketers, I think that's a lesson we've learned ourselves. Is we've tried to find people like that person's going to solve everything. It's like we got some amazing, Paulina being one of them, and a bunch of others. So it's good stuff. Cool. Paulina, you got anything else? Any other thoughts?
I think that's all. I think it was a perfect conversation to end our conversation. So.
And the last thing, actually, Fran, is what's the call to action? What should people do? Where can they find you and Superfluid? Obviously, on the live stream right now, their handles are in the title. But for anyone listening on the podcast or wherever else, or later on, what do you want people to do? Yeah.
My DMs are open if there's anything interesting that you want to touch on. My DMs have always been open. It means I have to deal with a bunch of spam, but it's, doesn't matter because I think it's important to be accessible. If anybody's coming to Denver, come check, come meet us. Let's chat. You can get some points. And we are running a developer program that I'm extremely excited about. There are some really cool projects that are being built there. And again, following our philosophy, it's an ongoing program where we really try and nurture the participants. And we are going to start live streaming the demo days every 2 weeks. So if you're interested in Superfluid and streaming, if you want to see kind of what people are building on it, what are some of the exciting things that developers are up to, definitely tune in for that, because there's some really cool projects in this cohort, and I'm very excited about them.
It's going to be fun. Keep us up to date. And I think with that, we're going to say thank you so much, Fran, for coming through. This is a really great conversation. Very bullish on what you guys are building. And I might follow up with you on some things, because for clients, for ourselves, I think it makes so much sense for how we transition from this kind of antiquated, everyone copying Uniswap all those years ago, to how do we mature as an industry and create more sustainable points and rewards programs. It makes sense, but it's a mind shift, right? So we got to convince people.
Yeah, I think what people need, as usual, is they need to see it work once. That's how everything in Web3 works. Yeah. So we're hoping to lead by example.
Exactly. They should all keep an eye on Superfluid in February, right? So they will see it work.
Coming soon.
I would do that. Yes.
Thanks, Fran.
All right. Thanks so much, Fran.
We're live with us. Ciao.
Thank you.
See you live.
Talk to you soon. Ciao, ciao.
Bye-bye.